Okay, you guys working today?
We are, yeah. Lots of fun stuff going on.
Cool. Well, I won't take too much of your time. Do you have any questions for me before we begin?
No, yeah. I mean, Todd, I'd love to. Maybe you could just share, for the sake of the audience, like your background and your. I know you've got a growing audience. It's been fun following you and stuff. But yeah, maybe you could just for the new listeners, maybe you could just share a little bit of your background.
So, the basics about me: I am a software developer, non-games, professional software of about 13, 14 years. When my son was born, I went indie about 6 years ago to raise him and take a stab at doing indie development. And in the meantime, started doing some writing, some blogging, stuff like that. Got to work with some professional outlets in the industry, and didn't continue doing the freelance writing, but I did continue the website and the companion podcast. And that stuff has kind of, like you said, it kind of picked up speed. People have come to, I guess, enjoy it. So I keep putting it out. It's the kind of thing I like listening to. So hopefully people are getting that same thing out of that. So that's the basics.
Very cool.
Very cool. Really cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, and thank you, Todd, for taking the time. And we're always excited to have a chance to share with our story with more people.
Sure. And I know, Jonathan, you're the CEO of Buildbox currently, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Doug, what's your position?
I head up design over at Buildbox. So everything from UX, UI to some marketing pieces and everything in between.
Cool. Okay. So, cool. Since we're just kind of rolling into it, why don't we start here at the top? Jonathan or Doug, if you'd also like to chip in on this, share with listeners the basics of what Buildbox is and sort of your personal history of coming on board.
Sure. I could start. So Buildbox is no code software for making games, and our vision is that anybody who wants to make a game, if they don't know how to code, they'll be able to do that, and so it's really self-expression through video games, and I think you're seeing this trend in a lot of software. Throughout all kind of areas of technology, is simplifying it, making it easier to use, not requiring a technical background to make things. My background way back was actually as an engineer, and one of the things that was the hardest problem to do was like make video games, and so that's our mission to empower millions of people to make video games. My last company, Ad Colony, was basically simplified ads for people and made it really easy to integrate ads into your games. Sold that to Opera Software in 2014. Started App Onboard, which is the parent company of Buildbox in 2016. And we actually acquired Buildbox in 2019. And realized that, wow, this is a huge opportunity, really growing community, and decided to double down the whole company on Buildbox. So that's kind of where we're at today.
Gotcha. Doug, how long have you been around?
I think I've been with the company now for 2.5 years, just about. I was always on the other side of gaming, right? Never really developing or building, but always involved in mobile gaming. Used to work a lot with user acquisition, being on the creative side, right? Doing a lot of user acquisition videos, obviously playing a lot of games, and then kind of got into a lot of UX and UI interface, right? Always dealing with things such as, After Effects, Photoshop, and I think the challenge that we have here is really, really, really unique and such a great opportunity to build a piece of software that allows the users to build games without having to code is truly amazing. So, being able to kind of combine those two experiences has been a real pleasure, and such an awesome journey so far. But that's kind of a little bit of my background is having some of that design experience. Obviously working with a lot of the professional tools that help me design on different projects, video, whatever it might be. But then having the opportunity to take on Buildbox and work on the UX and UI and solve those interesting, you know, challenges that our creators face every day with, you know, whether it's the interface, whether it's the experience, and how to make that game creation process more easy. You know, it's just been a real fun challenge.
Sure, makes sense. So, so to sort of set the table for anyone not familiar with what's going on lately, I wanted to have you guys on to help people, for one thing, understand what exactly Buildbox is and what Buildbox aims to be. Which we've got a head start on already. And also, you know, I don't think it's any secret that Buildbox is going through a bit of a transitional phase right now. And we want to kind of help make sense of that, not in a confrontational manner, of course, but to help people make sense of what's going on, know right where Buildbox is, what their philosophy is. And we'll go over some of the points where I think people are having trouble sort of making the two philosophies meet. There's their understanding of Buildbox and what how Buildbox wants to position itself. Because at the end of the day, Buildbox can do and offer and position itself however it pleases, and I think people just want to know sort of what exactly that is. So maybe Jonathan, could you help by just starting to explain what that transition is right now for Buildbox?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and very well said, Todd. We are undergoing a transition, and I think it's been maybe a month and a half to 2 months from when we first launched our big kind of like, okay, here's how we're going to start to have more ability to invest in the community. So I think one thing that might not be clear to our community is that App Onboard and Buildbox invest millions of dollars a year into our community today. And in order to invest a lot more than that into the community tomorrow, hundreds of millions of dollars and ultimately billions of dollars into the community, we obviously have to have a healthy business. And I think we took kind of our best shot at trying to do that after a lot of planning and talking to the community. And I think, to be honest, like, we got it wrong, and I'll be the first to admit that. And I think we heard very, very, very vocally from the community, specifically how we got that transition plan wrong. And so we met both publicly and privately with many as many of the most vocal people in the community as possible, to try to get specifics on like what specifically was wrong about how we rolled that plan out. And we decided, based off of all that feedback, to roll it back. Essentially, we went from saying, hey, we're going to do revenue share across the board, to, hey, we're not going to do revenue share anywhere except our new AdBox product, which is a really great way to simplify ad usage. But we're not going to be taking, you know, your cut of your IAP or your paid apps or other places that you kind of monetize your game. So that was a big learning experience for us. And I think hopefully, you know, we don't have to go through that sort of like pain again to try to understand the community. Maybe, you know, hopefully we've you know, built up some goodwill to with the community in rolling that back. But I think still the community wants to see, okay, well, what are you going to do for me moving forward, despite not, you know, taking the revenue share out of all these other places. And so that was a big learning for me personally, and I think it was a big learning for our company. I think the biggest kind of creative and technological transition that we're going through is, how do we make, you know, Buildbox as a platform just much easier to use, just radically simple. And I'd say, you know, one of the great there's two companies, at least two companies that are doing for video and media what we're trying to do for video games. One is a company called Light Tricks. I don't know if you've looked at this company, but there's if you just go on the App Store and type in Lightricks, Light Tricks, it's essentially Photoshop on steroids on your phone, and you can do all of the amazing things that you could do in Adobe Photoshop right on your phone, whether it's like green screen stuff to sparkle effects to anything that you want to do on your videos and photos, without having to have the technical knowledge of any of the complex Adobe products. And the other one is just TikTok. Like, do you remember, like, even 5 years ago, we had a green screen in our office to do stuff like this that Zoom can do. Like, I'm just in my living room. Like, I don't have a green screen here. And TikTok, just as an example, is one company that's really radically simplified video editing effects in real time, so that you don't need any other software to do that. We're trying to do that for video games, so that if you have an idea and you want to express yourself through a video game, you should be able to do that without having to learn code or download other software. So that's kind of the transition that we're in on the creation side. And that's a constant challenge that requires a lot of investment, a lot of money, a lot of resources. Why we raised our funding round. And then on the sharing side as well, one of the most difficult things in video games today is, even if you built the game, how do you get it into other people's hands, whether it's on an app store or on Steam or whatever? It still requires a long process. Even for young people, they may have to somehow get their parents to help them, or create a sub incorporation or an LLC just to be able to legally share a video game. Whereas, like, on TikTok, they could just share a video, no problem. Can you imagine if, like, every single TikTok video went under review and required like an LLC to post it? I mean, you wouldn't have a community there. So we're trying to do that same thing for video games. And so our audience is our core audience is quite young. They're roughly like 13 to 23. And so they're graduates from Roblox and Minecraft, and they really don't have any desire to go learn how to code or go to college to learn how to use Unity or any of those things. They really just want to express themselves. And so we're trying to enable that, and it's a big hard challenge, and that's why it requires a lot of resources and money and so forth. So
okay,
hopefully that gives a little clarity.
Sure, yeah, it does, and I think that actually rolls pretty well into one of the primary things I think a lot of people wanted to hear more of your position on, was that people were surprised to hear that Buildbox does not want to be referred to as an engine anymore. I'll say anymore because I think being a game engine has been traditionally part of the messaging from Buildbox. Yeah. And so does that mean from your end that you're positioning yourself as more of a service, or, is it not in such clear terms? How do you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Todd. And I think this is another thing that I think now see both sides of it. And we had a big discussion internally as well. Yes. Some people see us as a game engine. Other people just see us as software. I think the reality is you can make an argument for both. From an true engineering perspective, there's a lot more in Buildbox than just a game engine. So we're a lot more than that. But to some people, that's a game engine is something that make games. And so, yes, you could say we're a game engine. And that's why I just kind of say, yeah, that's another thing that I can see both sides of it. Some people do call us that. Some people don't. We feel like we're a lot more than that, because traditionally, from an engineering sense, a game engine is something that you are required to write code in. In other senses, it's not. So I can see both sides of it. And that's another thing that I just I think I went too far in trying to defend our stance on that. And I realized, no, some people see us as a game engine, some people don't. So, and that's okay.
I think to your credit, I think there's a very good argument to make that it's more than a game engine. A lot of game engines have not traditionally made any effort to help with many of the pain points that Buildbox does look to address. So I think that's totally fair to say certainly more than a game engine. And it may be arguing semantics for people who are at that very beginner level because they hear game engine and they go, I don't know what to do about that. What would I do with the game engine? So exactly. I think that's fair, and I think that's a good clarification. Since we're sort of starting to get into some of the similar or comparable service providers and products and stuff, you mentioned Roblox, which came up initially during the first discussion on social. You mentioned YouTube, and not to sort of argue, not to split hairs, but I think it would help for people to know where the comparable rate came from when people talk about 70% a lot. Of course, that was a big, scary number to people, and YouTube had come up, and I haven't been able to find where that comparable program was, and I think maybe that would help to know if you had something specific you were looking at YouTube.
Sure. And so maybe we could take one, each one separately. So on the Roblox side, you made a great point in our email exchange, which, by the way, I think out of everybody who covered the story of the initial release of the pricing, I think you had the most pertinent questions that I think were relevant to the discussion, and I appreciated our kind of going back and forth, and which led to us having this podcast, which hopefully is the first of more if you'll have us.
Sure.
But I think on the so. What's hopefully becoming clearer now as we roll out our products. Yes, we do. One of the questions you said is, are there plans for, because one of the things that Roblox has that justifies some of those larger revenue cuts is infrastructure, kind of a place to share, all those things. So kind of under the radar, we've released Buildbox World. We haven't really gone huge on it yet because there's a really big update coming out soon, which we can share. But Buildbox World is essentially our Roblox for hyper casual games, and we provide all the infrastructure for that, all the sharing. Literally today, you can actually try it. You can only share privately. We'll be opening that up to the whole world later this year. But with one click, you can press a button inside Buildbox World and get your game on your phone. Eventually, with that one click, it will also be shared to the world, much like you share with TikTok or Roblox. And so that's a huge expense. That's a huge cost for us. The other thing is AdBox and our asset store. A lot of cloud kind of costs there and expenses related to those. So we're definitely as those products roll out, I think people will understand the justification for that. Again, that's only for the free version. If you do the paid version, you can get obviously much lower rates on AdBox, which is really the only place besides subscriptions that we're taking any revenue today. And then on the YouTube side, I think Google's been notoriously like coy about their revenue shares and things like that. I think the idea there, again, with Buildbox World, we rolled out the pricing before we rolled out these other products, kind of just to kind of not do it later, and just kind of set the standard early. And so I think what you'll see is making and sharing a game will be as easy as YouTube. And yes, they don't, and even I think they've changed some of the stuff recently they're always kind of changing it up, but, I'd say Roblox is a more accurate comparison today. And I can't really, I think the YouTube, I probably shouldn't have used that analogy specifically, but it's out there. And I think we all have questions about YouTube.
I think it's fair to bring up YouTube's sort of content ecosystem as sort of a model to look at. I don't have any argument with that at all. And almost without fail, everyone I spoke to on social who was looking at this and went like, how does this comparison stack up? How does that comparison stack up? And I asked everyone who would respond to me, like, do you know any of the actual revenue cuts at YouTube? And every single one said, no, I don't.
Yeah,
A lot of us are YouTubers. A lot of us have YouTube channels. No one really knew exactly. And all of us went like, they may very well have a 70%. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard higher than that. And I think one of the things that we actually had as a discussion internally was and this is kind of why YouTube was on the tip of my tongue in a lot of those conversations, was we couldn't find it either. Our only way to base it was off of like, friends at Google and things like that. And it was like, oh, it's quite high, but we don't share it. And so we actually thought about like, well, should we be sharing our revenue cut at all with the community? Why don't we just do it like YouTube does and they don't share it? And I think where we came out was, let's be transparent. And we did. And then that led to a lot of other kind of questions, which hopefully we've answered now. But yeah, YouTube's a tough one, Todd. I think you're right. I mean, and we may never know what it could be like a sliding scale.
Right. That's true. And the issue of transparency obviously has come up a lot since this sort of restructuring and the new tiers rolled out and everything. There's been a big call for it. And I think, to your credit, I think you guys have made several moves to come further in that direction, in the direction of transparency, let people know exactly what's going on. I think a lot of people took issue with, when the first tier structure came out, to me, my concern was that, I know you guys are big on TikTok. You guys have the first day I tried TikTok, I saw tons of Buildbox stuff and I wasn't even looking for it. So, and that's great. That's a way for people to come in, learn game development where maybe they had never even considered it before. Yeah. I think based on the first tier chart that I saw, where I think you had to click from the main page to the pricing page and from the pricing page to like a details page, I thought, I feel like a reasonable person might be able to join and download and agree to this stuff without even ever seeing the revenue cut. And that's something you guys have changed since then. So, I mean, what else, what other steps have you taken in your sort of messaging and your copy on the site?
Well, I think on the site, I mean, obviously we've taken great measures to make sure we're as transparent as we can be, at least, obviously on the pricing page, to make sure that everyone is very, very clear about where we're taking any sort of revenue cut and how much is going to the creator there. And we'll be doing more as we roll out new features and products to make sure that, whether that's adding another bullet point, whether that's adding, more feature bullets as well. But just want to make sure that, there's, nothing left to the imagination of kind of what revenue is going where and kind of where we stand on kind of feature gates and everything like that. So, that was something that we talked about a lot internally and try to make that change very quickly and to be, as clear as possible with pricing. Because I think, with terms and conditions and pricing like that, I think things do get confusing. And if you're just, as John said, we have a lot of new creators coming in that are maybe skewing a little bit younger. So trying to make sure like everyone understands what they're getting into. Well, obviously offering as much as we can to those new younger creators coming in where, hey, they're able to download free, they're able to publish, to desktop, to mobile without having to pay for anything and then monetize their game. So we're trying to make sure that everyone kind of understands those things now and be as transparent as we can in messaging on those pricing pages, while, obviously making sure that, we're trying to give back to the community as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think, Todd, I mean, just again, to your credit, and it's literally, we've developed a relationship. I appreciate your even your notes about, my family and what we're going through. It meant a lot to me. One of the things that actually has helped our transparency is some of the questions that were raised actually as a result of the content that you put out. We even in those early days, and after we rolled back the revenue share, there were still a lot of questions like, well, if I'm a pro user, am I required to use this, that? Like, we took those questions and discussion points from the discussions that came out of the material that you put out actually in the FAQ. Adding it like almost like on a daily basis, like, oh, here's another question that's just not clear. and now it's right there in the pricing page. So before you sign up for anything, you're clear. And I think, like, to Doug's point, I think it's really important to know that, like, most of our users are free users, and they can create games for free. They can get them on the App Store at no charge to Buildbox, or no charge from Buildbox, and then they can start making money like that. Those are like, what other, like, software in the world can you, like, just all of a sudden start making money from a standstill? And so I think we want to keep that transparency, and I think your content's really helped us too.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that you guys have looked it over. You've been very open to questions. Schedules are obviously difficult, but you guys have stuck with it and made sure we connected. So again, big credit there. Something I saw on the website, which sort of raised this question, you guys put out right when you had sort of crossed over the 1 million signups mark, which was, I think, informative and good to know for people. And it kind of got me thinking, like, for somebody on their way in who really wants to take a serious run at game development, and they may very well choose Buildbox because it suits their knowledge level, the interest in how they want to spend their time. Certainly it's a valid option. As they're choosing the tiers, have you guys put out information on sort of success stories, data about the average user, which tier they're on, what their earnings have been, anything like that? Because you guys do a lot of communication. It's hard to keep up with. So I figured the answer may very well be this is out there. But what have you put out, and what are you going to put out?
So I'll let Doug take the meat of the question, but I just wanted to kick it off with how do I say this? I think almost everybody who makes money on Buildbox is very, very protective about how much money they make. And sure. I think that's totally understandable. I think what's most exciting about that is the reasons. Many of our users, so Buildbox is a global product. Actually, most of our users are from the rest of the world, and most of and a lot of our successful users are from third world countries. And they've told us that Buildbox actually supports their family. They didn't even have a job before they were making money using Buildbox. And in other cases, they've said that they don't want their earnings getting out for fear of other people, even in their own communities, like robbing them, things like that. I mean, sure. And what makes Buildbox so useful or so usable, I'd say, in emerging countries is, we talk about it, it's Buildbox runs on a toaster. So for most people, like in the United States, yeah, you can get a really nice setup and download the latest, like, game development software and do all these amazing 3D graphics. We can see the types of computers that people are using Buildbox on. A lot are very, very low end computers in emerging countries where you just can't afford an expensive computer. And so it's related to that question, because I think those people are very unlikely to share their revenue information, and then those that are at the top are also not very reluctant to share. But I think it points to a very positive thing, which is that really any young person around the world, regardless of what kind of computer they have, can start building games on Buildbox because of how small a footprint it requires. But go ahead, Doug, on case studies and things like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd encourage anyone out there to check out the website. In particular, we run the game spotlights and creator spotlights. That's will give anyone kind of wondering kind of what games are being made on Buildbox, who some of our community is and are. To actually go and kind of read about different games being produced, links to go download them, check them out. We do have on the Buildbox 3 site and the Buildbox Classic site, we have amazing games made here. That gives us a little bit of a showcase. I'll give users a little bit of of a showcase of kind of, again, some of the top quality games that are being made. Those have kind of been up there for a while, but we will be changing those out periodically. So I encourage everyone to check out the product pages, because we will be highlighting certain games there all the time as well. But the blog is a great spot to kind of go and gather some of that information. If you're wondering, again, what games are being made, what are some of the more current games that are being made. And then on a really high level, we have kind of the what is Buildbox 3 right for you, or is Buildbox Classic right for you on the product pages. Again, very high level as a snapshot of, okay, if you're wanting to make a 2D game versus a 3D game, kind of directing you into the product. Again, high level. And then encourage everyone to kind of check out our blogs, right? There's a ton of great, and I almost call them case studies on kind of, how our creators are leveraging the software and what kind of games they're making. And then as well as some of our recent articles, right? We're trying to kind of help people to kind of get a grasp of, is 2D or 3D right for you, and kind of help them on their game creation process. And again, I think there's a lot of new creators out there that might not have developed games or thought about creating games. And these articles are out there to really help them think about not only like what software, BB Classic or BB3, but also the overall holistic game design process. So definitely encourage everyone to check out our blog. It's updated almost every other day or every day. And there's a lot of great information there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have shared, Todd, like a number of like downloads. If a particular game has done like over 1 million downloads, we'll share that. It's really up to the creator, like what they'll allow us to share. And I'd say most of the creators are more interested in the visibility that the game gets, like if it hits the top 100 in their category or overall, than like the amount of money that they actually earned. So some are the other way around and just won't share that, but we try to share as much information as the creators will let us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think that's fair. We certainly see some version of that pretty much across any game development solution. You will get that from Steam store developers. It came up in the Epic versus Apple lawsuit. They had released a bunch of studios info, not to, throw them under the bus, but it seemed like there had at least been a misunderstanding where they shared a bunch of stuff in court and a bunch of studios said, "What are you doing? Don't talk about our stuff." So you see that pretty much everywhere, but I would encourage people, if you're thinking about a game development solution, or you have one you even think you don't like, do check out what they're willing to say on social, what they're willing to share on social, those blogs and those articles and stuff. You guys do a fair amount of it, and I think that's probably the best place to get as many answers as you guys have offered up so far. That seems like the place to, even when you, as you said, you doubled back on a few things, and you were pretty clear about that on the blog also, days after it all blew up. So I think that was handled very well, and I would encourage you guys keep that up. That's cool. That's what everybody's looking for. That's what I think will clear up a lot of misconceptions where they've been. Some of it, of course, is going to be like, I don't think anybody should have anything that takes 70% of anything. Okay, my position is you guys have choices about. You could have easily said we don't have any free version of anything. Sorry, you wouldn't be alone. So it's just a matter of information. One thing I wanted to ask about before we kind of open things up a little bit is this has not come up in any of the articles, but in some of the conversations I've seen online, I think Reddit was one, maybe Twitter also, was people that said, okay, we've seen articles about Buildbox doing funding rounds, and we've seen some of the numbers they brought in, which is, any funding round, millions of dollars, this and that and everything. And you guys had quotes at that time that seemed to butt up against some of the things we've seen on the blog. So like during the funding times, and I think the last was January when that closed. There was a Bloomberg article that said you guys had closed a funding round, and at that time they, I'm paraphrasing here, but you guys said, we're going to hire more staff, we're going to experiment with advertising, and it sort of hinted at some of the transitional stuff we have seen. So it seemed like that was right on track. And then on the blog, you guys kind of said, this new tier structure allows us to stay strong and stay in business and keep doing what we're doing. And some people saw that and said, okay, are they in a position of strength or are they not? Are they keeping up or are they scrambling? And is this a place I want to sort of dig in and try to take a run at things for the future over the next few years? So what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, and I think it's yeah, when you put those two things together, it seems like there's a disconnect, and there is. And I think what we talked about, when we talk about being in business, we really mean for the next century. And so these plans are being laid to, like I said, we spend millions of dollars a year investing in the community. We want to invest hundreds of millions of dollars and ultimately billions. In order to do that, we have to build a healthy business. We're very healthy today in terms of our funding, but I think like any startup knows, you need, in order to be around in 50 years, you gotta build a healthy business. So that it was just a timing thing, and I think I should have been more clear about that. And I can see why some people might have got spooked a little bit by that. But no, but we're very healthy in terms of funding. We actually don't we in terms of like our creators make tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. I think Color Switch made $100 million, and we actually make very, very little money. Most of our money is invested back into the community. But in order for us to continue to invest in the community, we obviously have to build a healthy business that works for both the community and for us. So that's all that was. And I didn't mean to spook the community, but I do see how that was read.
Fair enough. I hadn't really seen, it would have been tough to find a place where that had been addressed. And I thought maybe we could sort of provide that here.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Doug, I think we get to throw one to you here. And this is just for my own, maybe nobody else is having this issue but me, but since things have started to shake up a little bit with you guys and you're offering more stuff now, I first took a look at Buildbox probably maybe a year and a half ago. As soon as I heard about it, I went and checked things out, downloaded it from the website, tried to make a little project, had a nice time, and sort of moved on to other things. Since that time, you're doing Buildbox Classic, Buildbox 3, 4, is it?
3, 4, 1. Mm-hmm.
I don't even know which one I tried anymore, so maybe at high level, you can sort of go through the difference between the major products right now and what people can expect from this.
Yeah, no, sure. We want to give back to Buildbox 2, which became Buildbox Classic. Had a lot of great following. The product's a little bit more simplified. It's a 2D game builder. So when we released that product, we really wanted to give the community back that product as an entry point into the Buildbox world. If you were looking for a more simple product to use. There was still a lot of users still on that old BB2 product, which hadn't been updated in a little while. So we really wanted to kind of give that back to the community and re-release it as Buildbox Classic. Again, it's a great entry point into Buildbox. It's a great entry point into building 2D games. It's a little bit more simple than BB3. So we want to kind of just reintroduce that and kind of just get that out there to the world again. And this is such a great product.
Got it.
Since a year ago, or sorry,
no good.
Then since a year ago, with the Buildbox 3 product, and just recently, I think just in the last 2 weeks, we released Buildbox 3 in the version 3.4.1, which is you're starting to kind of get a glimpse of the stuff we've been working on literally for the past year. New redesigned home screen, have BB World exports in there. And a whole bunch of new products and features within that product that are going to make game creation a lot more simple. So you're going to see some really cool stuff in the next 3 months, next 4 months. And we're just going to keep it going again, taking those, as John was saying, reinvesting that money really, really back into, not only the under the hood, but a lot of UI improvements that are going to make really game creation a lot more simple and a lot more, focus on discovery, focusing on making the product just more simple to use. Again, new user, we want a new user to get in there and make a game within, 10 minutes if possible, guided, right? In the next week, they're making their own game and then publishing. So really going to be focusing a lot more on, just making overall game creation more simple throughout both products, really.
Okay. That makes sense, and I think I understand fully for the first time, so thank you for that. So without, obviously there's stuff you've got on the roadmap, things that you've announced, things you haven't announced yet, but I mean, tell me a little bit, we sort of hit on this earlier. You guys are clearly aiming for I think the best explanation I've heard so far is that you're trying to address the pain points from, no knowledge to game that other people can play. I mean, is that right so far?
Yeah.
Both nodding, which is good. And that makes sense. I think a retooling time is a great time to address more of those issues and what hurdles can we sort of tackle. Is a great point about you need an LLC to really properly release a game. I think in the case of the Apple Store, when I last went through it, there was no other way. I don't think you can do it unless you have federal hiring number and the whole thing. It's a mess. Yeah. It's really kind of a mess. I understand why they have to do it, but it's difficult. So you guys are shooting for more of an all-encompassing, well-infrastructured solution for people to sort of get things into the hands of players in closer to a way that Roblox does it. I like that. That makes sense. I think that as people sort of start to see more of that shake out, I think they're going to much better understand why those rates become more comparable in terms of, free users giving back portions of things and stuff like that. That makes sense to me. I think Buildbox World's going to clearly be something to watch. I think it made sense just from the name that you guys had bigger plans for that than what the initial release was. That makes sense to you. Timing has maybe been a big issue here with all of the sort of misunderstandings, I guess. Not to drag you back through it, but I feel like Jonathan, I feel like you were in a tough position of trying to sort of explain Buildbox's messaging before the Twitter profile had even been updated, and I felt for you because I that seemed like a difficult position to be in, and everyone's like showing your screenshots of your own profiles and stuff.
I love it. It means we have a rabid community, but yeah, totally. And that's what happens. I think we're only 30 people, Todd, and most of them are engineers. So we are a very, very small team compared to anybody else out there making game development software. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like every day there's like, we got to do this, like we got to do that. We hope the community understands that it's our passion to enable them to make video games. We live, eat, breathe, think just about how do we make their lives easier for making video games. And yeah, things, like some of the, I guess, byproducts of that are, inopportune timing, kind of not having all of our stuff updated and things like that. And we do apologize for that. We hope that the community will bear with us as we grow.
But to that point too, I mean, it makes us a little bit more nimble. We're able to listen a lot more quickly and make those changes and course correct when we hear the community and we listen to the community and we're able to react. So, I think kind of to John's point, sometimes we're not all together and sometimes we kind of have, lagging updaters, but we are out there, we are listening, we are engaged, and we'd love to hear from the community. And I think it is great that we have such an engaged community that is passionate, and we want to make sure that we're in it with them. So,
and to your credit, the complete opposite, which would have been one big launch day where you announced everything at once. The products are new, the rates are different, the way you do ads is going to be different. I don't know that you would have heard anything back other than like, what? That would have been a lot. So I think people can maybe hopefully meet you in the middle there. So as we sort of reach the timeline we had kind of set to shoot for, I would say go ahead and tell people where to follow online, because you guys are kind of all over social, big website. Where should people look to sort of figure out if Buildbox is something they want to learn about?
Cool. Well, I mean, obviously just buildbox.com. Hit the landing page. It's going to give you a brief overview, and then you can dive into Buildbox Classic or Buildbox 3. There's a lot of great information there. There's a lot of information on the features. Obviously, you can dive into the pricing and kind of find out what you need to there, but it's really easy to get started. It really is that simple. And I encourage everyone out there to, test out the products, right? Are you into 2D or 3D? If 2D, go Buildbox Classic. If you're more on the 3D side, dive into Buildbox 3 and just download it. It's free. Get in there, play around. Social, we are all over. I think TikTok, we've been trying to make a really strong presence on TikTok, get a lot of updates pushed there, a lot of information, a lot of fun videos. that kind of highlights some of the new features and how we're kind of creating in-house with our team. Not more on the marketing side, but more kind of internally using the folks here and my favorite people on the creative side. But obviously Instagram, Twitter are always good places as well as far as social.
Got it.
Yeah, and we just want to thank the community for being so vocal. We do 100% listen to as much as we possibly can take in as 30 human beings. And we do listen, and this won't be the last time that we adjust to feedback and all those things. I mean, we are constantly trying to learn from the community. That's what a community is, like, not just one way. Like, we listen and we try to give feedback and we try to adjust. So we hope that the community will continue to be vocal and to help us help them.
Okay, well, you guys have been very good sports, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Todd.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Yeah.
Cheers.